2 people are dead and 7 injured after a plane crash in Brazil. Now, this is video from Sao Paulo. You can see fire and black smoke coming from what appears to be a crash site. Now, we don't know what caused the plane to go down, but pieces of the wreckage are reported to have hit a bus and cyclists. Other pedestrians in the area are also being treated, and we'll continue to follow the story for you and have the latest information when it becomes available. Right now, we're also following breaking news out of Alaska, where crews are still looking for any signs of a missing plane in rural Alaska, which has now been missing for almost 18 hours. Local fire departments started ground searches overnight, and U.S. Coast Guard and Air Force have joined in to help with in-air and on-water searches. Now, take a look at the map on your screen. This shows the last known location of the jet carrying 10 people. This disappearance marks the 3rd major U.S. aviation incident in just 8 days. We'll bring you any updates we get on the search.
Leaders from the East African community and the Southern African Development Community have convened to address the ongoing conflict destabilizing the Great Lakes region. Government ministers, followed by heads of state from SADC's 16 nations and the EAC's 8 member states, are here to discuss the crisis in the eastern DRC. Tanzania and the DRC are the only countries that hold membership in both regional blocs. This meeting in Dar es Salaam aims to complement rather than duplicate the stalled Luanda and Nairobi peace processes, which have struggled to make progress in recent years. A key objective is to enable dialogue and trust between DRC President Felix Tshisekedi and Rwanda's Paul Kagame, as direct communication between them is considered by some as vital to resolving the crisis. Notably absent from the talks is the M23 rebel group, which has been advancing toward Bukavu after taking control of Goma last week. Before the summit, SADC chairperson President Emerson Mnangagwa stressed that engaging M23 in discussions would be essential for achieving tangible outcomes. The United Nations reports that the battle for Goma, driven by M23 forces with alleged support from Rwanda, has resulted in 3,000 deaths and displaced over 1 million people. Rwanda has repeatedly refuted claims of the presence of its soldiers in the DRC. Damage to infrastructure has worsened the situation, leaving thousands in urgent need of humanitarian aid. It remains to be seen whether this summit will lead to meaningful relief efforts and a lasting resolution to the conflict. Isaac Lukando for African News, Dar es Salaam.
The United Nations Human Rights Chief Volker Turk on Friday expressed profound concerns at the ongoing violence escalating in the Eastern Democratic Republic of the Congo DRC caused by the ongoing Rwanda-backed M23 offensive.
Je suis horrifié.
I am horrified by the spread of sexual violence, which has been an appalling feature of this conflict for a long time. This is likely to worsen in the current circumstances. DRC Minister of Communication and Media, Patrick Muyaya Katembwe, spoke out against the continued logistical support by Rwanda to M23. We firmly reject the continued involvement of some states, including Rwanda, in providing logistical, military and financial support to armed forces operating on our territory. Rwanda's support for the M23, which has been documented on several occasions, including by the group of experts mandated by the United Nations Security Council, has fueled the violence in the east of our country for more than 30 years, exacerbating the war for reasons linked to the exploitation of the strategic mining resources of the DRC. Dismissing that claim, Ambassador James Ngango of Rwanda to the United Nations in Geneva insisted that a large-scale attack against Rwanda was also imminent.
The Kinshasa-backed coalition has stockpiled a large number of weapons and military equipment near Rwanda's border, mostly in or around the Goma airport. These weapons include rockets, kamikaze drones, heavy artillery guns capable to shoot precisely within the Rwandan territory. The weapons were not turned at the threat of operations, at the theater of operations against the M23. Rather, they were pointed directly at Rwanda.
Since 26 January, nearly 3,000 people have been killed and 2,800 injured in attacks by the M23 and their allies, with heavy weapons used in populated areas and intense fighting against armed forces of the DRC and their allies.
Now on the
federal workers' fallout that is affecting so many of you and your families. In the last hour, our team watched as the signage at the USAID building came down. You can see cranes taking down the agency's signs and flags. You're also going to notice here black tape over some of the words on some of the marquees.
Well, this comes as employees stare down an 11:59 p.m. deadline where the Trump administration is expected to lay off 97% of USAID's workforce. Now, we know that many of you are being impacted by this, and it brings with it a lot of uncertainty. And our team is committed to getting you answers from trusted sources.
That's right. Our Rafael Sanchez Cruz has been on top of this story all week long. And Rafa, people were outside of USAID's office and they could not believe what they were seeing.
Yeah, it's an emotional day for those who have ties to USAID. You can see our camera actually captured when a woman was crying as the signage was coming down just a couple hours ago. And President Trump took to social media and posted, quote, "Close it down." But USAID employees are trying to put a halt to the administration's efforts to dismantle the 6-decade-long agency and its programs. Here's 3 things you need to know. Tonight, just before midnight, the administrative leaves are set to officially take place. But because some of these federal employees are worldwide, some are already seeing the effects of this shutdown. 2, right now, employee associations are trying to get a federal judge here in D.C. to temporarily block the shutdown from taking place. Now, USAID employees say the Trump administration's decision abruptly left American workers without health care and some stranded in dangerous places abroad. The lawsuit also argues that this decision is impacting the over 100 countries who get aid through this agency. And finally, number 3, the Trump administration has told USAID officials that it plans to only keep less than 300 positions out of more than 10,000. Now, we have digital investigative reporter Jordan Fisher in the courtroom right now listening in on that hearing for a possible temporary block. We'll have more coming up in the 5 o'clock hour. Simone? Larry?
Yeah, of course, the chief complaint from these associations is that this is an organization and an agency created by Congress, therefore it should be dismantled by Congress, and challenging whether or not the executive branch has the authority to move forward in the fashion that they are.
And there's so many people, Rafa, as you've touched on. Their lives are in the balance here. Their careers are in the balance. Thank you for your reporting on this tonight. Another big federal fallout. Democratic members of Congress were not allowed into the Department of Education today. The lawmakers were blocked by private security contractors who told them they needed to be on a guest list in order to enter the building. The lawmakers said the Department of Education is funded by taxpayer dollars and elected officials have the right to oversee operations.
If the American people do not wake up to what is being created, we might not have an opportunity to fight back the authoritarian dictatorship that is in the making. This is not just about going after public education. This is about going after the system of governance we have in this country.
President Trump has previously said he would like to close the Department of Education using an executive order. Closing the department would require congressional action.
The Bank of England has cut interest rates by a quarter point as policymakers respond to signs of economic slowdown. However, the central bank remains cautious about further moves, citing concerns over inflation and global economic uncertainty. Meanwhile, the European Central Bank has already lowered borrowing costs 5 times since June, with at least 3 more cuts expected this year. ECB board member Piero Cipollone says that inflation is nearing the 2% target, leaving room for further easing. But with energy prices rising and global trade tensions mounting, the ECB is avoiding firm commitments on future rate decisions. Global trade tensions are a growing risk for Europe. China, which accounts for 35% of global manufacturing, could redirect its exports to Europe at lower prices, impacting local industries and inflation. According to Peterson Institute for International Economics, while the U.S. growth will take a hit, Europe could face even greater economic pressure. Cipollone warns that a full trade war under the U.S. administration could disrupt global supply chains and weaken European exports. But he downplays the immediate impact on corporate margins and currency valuations.
Despite trade tensions and inflation risks, the ECB official remains optimistic about the Eurozone's economic outlook. Inflation rose to 2.5% last month, but is expected to return to 2% by summer. Labour markets remain strong, consumption is picking up, and construction sector is showing resilience. The ECB's rate cuts are gradually feeding through the economy, and even the struggling industrial sector is stabilizing after 2 years of recession. While growth remains weak, Cipollone does not expect a Eurozone recession, maintaining that economic fundamentals remain intact despite global uncertainties.
Have you directed Elon Musk to review Pentagon spending, given it's the biggest discretionary spending in the federal budget?
Yes, I have Pentagon, education, just about everything. We're going to go through everything, just as it was so bad with what we just went through with this horrible situation we just went through. And I guess 97% of the people have been dismissed. It was very, very unfortunate. You're not going to find anything like that.
FBI has turned over a list to the Justice Department of the FBI agents who worked on the January 6 rioters cases. Are you planning to fire the FBI agents who worked on those investigations?
No, but I'll fire some of them because some of them were corrupt. I have no doubt about that. I got to know a lot about that business, that world. I got to know a lot about that world, and we had some corrupt agents, and those people are gone, or they will be gone. And it'll be done quickly and very surgically.
Mr. President, I wonder what you make of the criticism from Democrats that these staff reductions, the cuts that Elon Musk and Doge are doing are an unlawful power grab. And is there anything you've told Elon Musk he cannot touch?
Well, we haven't discussed that much. I'll tell him to go here, go there. He does it. He's got a very capable group of people. Very, very capable. They know what they're doing. They'll ask questions, and they'll see immediately as somebody gets tongue-tied that they're either crooked or don't know what they're doing. We have very smart people going in, so I've instructed him go into education, go into military, go into other things as we go along.
Russia invaded Ukraine almost 3 years ago. Europe faced a shock realisation that security couldn't be taken for granted. Militaries, which have been stripped back for years, found themselves needing to be ready for battle, including Germany, where civilians are now being trained for a worst-case scenario.
They say the trick is to remain calm. All the more vital when you're protecting your homeland. On the firing range today, an IT consultant, a mum, a guy in shipping. Civilians being trained to defend Germany in a crisis.
The situation in Europe has changed because of the war in the Ukraine. So now where whole areas are changing and we need to get ready for maybe a war in the future, we need to fill up our reserves.
After Russia invaded Ukraine, Germany pledged 100 billion euros to transform its military. That included boosting the numbers of troops and reservists like these. Like many here, office worker David signed up after war returned to Europe.
The invasion of Ukraine by Russia, I think that was definitely the motivating factor, because they're systematically trying to undermine the world order, crossing every red line that we have drawn up as a result of the experience in World War I, World War II, you know, not executing prisoners, not torturing, not raping.
Putin's invasion of Ukraine shocked Germany into reprioritizing defense. Military chiefs warn Russia may be strong enough to attack a NATO country in 5 years, meaning Germany needs to be war ready and fast.
I'm really convinced that this plan will work.
When it comes to responding to the new threats, Lieutenant General Andrei Bodeman is a man with a plan. He's helped draw up a new top-secret defense document. It covers everything from moving German and NATO troops through the country to mobilizing civilians.
Would you say this is the most dangerous period in terms of risk of war for Germany since the Cold War?
Yes, definitely. We cannot lose time. We have to start now. We already started, and we have to speed up to be ready before Russia is ready.
So with Putin not pulling any punches, Germany has no time to lose. But there's a big problem.
After years of neglect, the military is aging and shrinking, with the Armed Forces Commissioner warning it has too little of everything.
Fertig, go. Germany needs to find around 20,000 more soldiers in the next few years. And that's where young people come in. This camp offers teenagers an insight into what it takes to be in the military. With conscription currently off the table, the military is having to find other ways to attract recruits. Not an easy task in a country where history's left many inherently wary of war. The war in Ukraine has forced Germany's hand. Defence is once again a focus. But it's also a dividing line, a boundary that many here don't want to cross. Siobhan Robbins, Sky News.
S nami sú aj pre našu bezpečnosť a týmto im ďakujem. A chceme spoločne vyjadriť náš vzťah k našej krajine.
Školstvo nie je jeho témou. Martina Šimkovičová nezosiela...
Kolo dějin malého národa vznáší se kolem nás harmonie, harmonie, harmonie.
The French military base in Abidjan will officially be handed over to Ivory Coast on February 20th during a ceremony attended by the defense ministers of both countries, according to sources close to the matter. French Defense Minister Sébastien Lecornu is expected in Abidjan for the ceremony alongside his Ivorian counterpart Tené Birahima Ouattara. Alassane Ouattara, who has been in power in Ivory Coast since 2011, announced the transfer of the 43rd Bima Camp, the Marine Infantry Battalion located in Pobwe, a district in Abidjan, on December 31st. Having been expelled from Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger by hostile juntas, the French military also had to leave Chad shortly after N'Djamena abruptly terminated the military cooperation agreement at the end of November. Senegal is also negotiating the withdrawal of French troops by the end of 2025. In Ivory Coast, the departure is occurring amicably between the two armies. Ivorian paratroopers entered the Pobwe camp in January and are now working alongside the French soldiers.